You're listening to The Rabbit Hole with Eric Ramos, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Rabbit Hole podcast. I am your host, Eric Ramos. This is our second podcast. Welcome aboard. I'm glad we got that first one out the way. That was my first one ever. I didn't do any rehearsals. I just jumped on. I got tired of procrastinating. It's been many years that I've been planning on doing that, about 7 years. So no more procrastinating. Just jump in. Whatever mistakes, actually, there were some mistakes. I remember saying J.J. Redick was with the Lakers. I meant to say the Clippers. But other than that, I think that was my only mistake. So uh, if there were any more, let me know in the comments. I'm open to criticism. So this is my second podcast. So just like I covered in the first one, some of the things that we cover here in this podcast are the Lakers. You know, being a native Angelino, you know, I'm a hardcore Lakers fan. So, you know, I'm going to cover my Lakers. And as a martial artist, you know, I'm going to cover combat sports as well. But today, I have a special treat for you. We have a guest, and you know, the third topic that we cover, which is the meat of the podcast, which is fringe topics and the paranormal. And so we have a special guest today, and she has some interesting stories to share with you all to raise awareness about some of the other realities that are out there that exist. We can ignore it all we want. We can turn our heads, turn a blind eye, but those realities are there. So ignoring it is not a solution. Let's just embrace it, listen to what people have to say, and do our best to make sense of it and fit it into our worldview. So her name is Ruth Seance. We've been friends for many years, and she's a entrepreneur, life coach, business owner, leader, and close friend of mine. And so without any further ado, let's welcome to the show, Ruth Seance.
Hello, everybody. How are you, Eric? Thank you so much for that.
Welcome. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for this.
Good, good. So I remember, you know, some of the conversations we had in the past. You told me some very mind-boggling stories that I know our listeners are going to want to hear. And it's some very interesting things. And so, you know, I don't want to be greedy. I want to share those stories with the world. And I think people will be interested in hearing what you have to say about these things. So you have the floor.
Yeah. Just, go ahead and ask me any questions and I'll go ahead and answer you. But just to start off, when it comes to the paranormal side, I know it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for me to say, but I was a raised Wiccan, pagan, and Santeria. So I knew nothing about God until I found God. And where that comes in, I'm not sure how uncomfortable that would be to say out loud, but I have said it on my podcast, so I will say it again. That's how I was raised. And through activities and dreams and things happening, phenomena that happening through my family is where I was able to find God and then the meanings of all this spiritual world and what it means to me and my family.
And when you say some of the experiences you had, there was two that I heard. I heard dreams,
Yes.
and then I heard other phenomena.
Yes.
So when you say other, can you expand on that?
Other meaning that I have levitated from my bed, and you know my brothers and my mom have seen that in the past, and there has been dreams that may sound funny to others, but it's kind of like Freddy Krueger. I'm not even kidding. Where that dream became a reality, and my whole house went on fire, and my hair was longer, like towards the bottom of my butt cheeks, you could say. And I didn't get burned. Everything around me was burned, but just imagine my hair being so long, and there's fire all over me, but somehow I'm being shielded by something because I didn't get it. It didn't get caught on fire. So that always stayed with me for a long time. Even the owner of the house, it's the landlord, he still remembers that phenomenon. And that was part of a dream. and I had no candles, no anything around for that fire to start. But that was a fire in my dream.
So when you say, so this is interesting because,
It is. There's
so
a lot.
what, here's why this is interesting. Because imagine the listeners, right, that hear this conversation.
Yes.
I've been on that side, right?
Right.
Right. I'm the listener,
Okay.
and I see the interviewer, right? And I see the person that they're asking these questions. And sometimes I get annoyed because they don't dive in to certain statements. It's just left there on the table. So let's dive into those statements. So you
Okay.
said you were in the dream and there was a fire. So was the fire in the dream as you were experiencing the dream, or were you in the dream and as you came out of the dream, you witnessed that there was a fire on the outside in the real world?
It was both. So when I was in the dream, I was running away from what now we know it's called a demon. And just like the movie, like I said, the only reason I describe it that way is because I was hiding somewhere, just like in the movie. And then when
Mhm.
I woke up, that fire was actually there in my house. That fire actually happened.
Wow. So, wow, that's crazy. So you were in the dream, you're witnessing, you're experiencing the dream. And when you come out of the dream and you wake up, you see certain aspects of that dream bleed over into your reality.
Correct.
Wow,
That's
that's
why
crazy.
there's a reason why a person that actually goes through stuff like that can stand horror movies. I used to love them when I was younger,
Hmm.
but I'm not saying I'm scared of them. But there's two movies that really stand out for me, and one of them being Insidious, because that's a reality for me. That's something that happens most of the time. That's the spiritual side of me.
Hmm.
And again, Freddy Krueger. I know it's a funny thing. I'm not scared of it. It's fun, but just because of the simple fact that I had this demon chase me in my dream, and when I came out, this fire actually happened. It just reminds me of the clip when they're running to the locker or something like that, and then they wake up and it's real. That's the only reason I'm connecting it to it, but it has nothing to do with it. It's just that's a reality that happened to me, and I was just about maybe 16, 17 years old.
Now, when you say there was a demon chasing you in your dream, in that particular dream where there was the fire, have you encountered that demon on more than one occasion, or was that encounter in that dream the only one?
No, I have multiple dreams with him. I don't know who it is yet, but what I do know is maybe that's where you could come in. Um, the most I remember from him is his feet were like uh, I'm not gonna say like a the bull, but you could say like the feet were like bulls. But his body, I was only able to go all the way to like his waist, but it wasn't a bull. It was like a horse, but in a human form, kind of like I'm not sure what that creature could be.
Yeah, like Baal or something like that. There's like
Uh,
A Baphomet type creature.
Probably, yeah, like the bottom part. Um,
Mm.
I've been in situations where now, as I'm older, guys, I just because I know that you don't understand my story and I'm a little bit on the older side and I want to relate to what Eric said, being on the other side. Um, I am 35 years old now, so we're talking about 15 years ago. I back then I didn't know what a demon was. I didn't know, what the Holy Spirit was. And when I was following steps that I wasn't supposed to follow, like even during the night where I encountered me following my friend. He was my crush. He was my friend, and he's telling me, "Hey, like I'm part of the Satanism." He actually offered me a position to go see what his friends and him do, and I was gonna go. And we're talking about 2 in the morning. And back then I didn't know, but when I was gonna take that offer, and followed him. There was a white bird in the middle of the street in the LA at 2 in the morning. I did not know what that meant, but he ran away. He told me that I was very protected. I've never seen him again. So now we're diving in 15 years later. Now I understand it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you. Now I understand more.
Well, it's funny because in my first podcast, I shared a few stories, and one of the things was normally when I have a dream or a paranormal experience in the night or related to my sleep or dream, I would write it down right away because when you're in that some people call it an alpha state. It's easy to forget. So I would write whatever my experiences were down so that when I wake up in the morning and I look through it, I can see, oh, yeah, I remember I had this experience. So it's funny that you brought that up because when you were talking about the bird, I just remembered I had a dream with an experience like that and I didn't write it down. And had you not mentioned that now, who knows if I would have ever remembered it. But yeah, I do agree with you that the white bird probably was the Holy Spirit. Now again, we're talking about um, discrete, subtle realities. So there's no concrete evidence. There's no empirical evidence for us to draw these conclusions, but that's fine. Until we have empirical evidence, all we have really to go on are these testimonies here. So that'll be our base for others to draw those conclusions and try to map out that realm until unless the scientific community wants to lend their assistance, and then maybe with their help, we can get some empirical evidence. But
Right.
until then, we're left with this. So if they want more empirical evidence present when we have these conversations, then how about if they offer their assistance and stop scoffing at people who have these kinds of experiences? So you said that you had that the dream with the fire uh, and the demon was there. Now, was that before or after you ran into that guy who was a Satanist?
That was before.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so ever since I was little, Eric, I was taught, the tarot. I was also taught how to read hands. I was taught to do the white table. The white table, you're going to a trance where a spirit comes over you and you talk.
Hmm.
Um, for our family, putting our hands through rice before leaving with money and having some ruda, it's a herb, and having to cut lemons with a cross behind our main door was a normal thing for me. I grew up that way, so I had never seen it as it was weird, right?
Hmm.
But what I do know is that I still question myself a lot because now that I'm older and I understand religion a little bit deeper, I also wonder, what did my mom do or my descendants? What is it that we have that I have all these dreams, all these different kind of experiences that I've had over the last 20 years?
Hmm.
Where did it come from? And when I asked my mom is from Guatemala. I don't know if there's anything over there, but what I do know is that I was raised by her and my aunt. My aunt was very powerful. They a lot of people would go to her when they lost, like jobs or they wanted to like hate somebody,
Hmm.
and I didn't know that that's what you use saints for. Again, this is me watching her, put a jar and put some personal item and dig a hole beside a tree in Linwood. That's where we used to live. Um, that tree is still very much there, and you can see it's not a regular tree if you were to pass by it. And I know what's buried underneath there. And I was a kid, and I remember the saying, San Simon, and I remember the things she would do, but I didn't know it was not normal. To me, that was just how I was being upbrought until it was one night where she decided to do a sacrifice with a gallo. And she told my mom, "Don't let the kids come. They're going to cut it." And I didn't understand what cut it means, which means I guess we were going to cut the work because we're kids.
And
And I
just so
was
for our listeners, sorry, gallo is rooster, correct? Or
rooster, correct.
chicken? Okay.
And when I seen her do that, I got really frightened. That night I went to bed like shaking, like a kid. I know I was shaking. I was cold. I was terrified for what I seen. And when I seen out the window, and I know that's the hardest part to believe, I seen a blue Virgin Mary. It wasn't Virgin Mary, but it was a blue Virgin. I don't know who she was, but she reached out her hand to me. I felt warmth. From that day forward, it's where I started having dreams. Like, before that, I just remember being like a 5 year old sitting down in the middle of the night and talking to somebody. To this day, I have no answers of who I was talking to. I just know that I will always sit in the middle of the night and just play and talk to somebody. And I remember seeing like a leprechaun. I remember seeing things that people don't see. And I was told to build an altar for Jesus too. Back then, I didn't know what Jesus was. I just did it. I followed whatever they told me to do. And those are things that even I want answers to.
So let me ask you this. I remember you said that you were taught, right? And when you said
Correct.
you were taught, then you were saying the tarot, uh,
Yes.
different altars, so on and so forth.
Correct.
When you were taught these things, was it from multiple people or from one person?
Just my aunt.
So was
And
your aunt, so this is your father's sister or your mom's sister?
she is my mom's sister.
So your mom's sister initiated you into these practices.
Correct. But from what I've heard, my aunt, my great grandmother also does that in Guatemala. She's
Mm,
still alive. I haven't met her, but I heard she has a home in a balcón. Balcón means basically it's like a big home going down a hill,
mhm,
and there's a lot of activity there. But that's as far as my mom remembers. She just says that that's all she remembers.
mhm.
But my mom, what I do wonder is, my mom had to give me up for 2 months when I was an infant. She had
To
gotten
who?
to some Christians, so she had gotten into this country with my dad. It's kind of funny, but you want to listen to this part. She said that because I asked her, I asked her questions. I said, "Mom, I need to know, like, I need to know what's going on with me. Like what? Tell me the history." And she's like, "I don't know anything." And she says, "But I do know that I was told to burn you alive." And I was like, "What?" She's like,
Who
"Yes,
told, wait, okay, so who told you that?
my mom."
So your mom said that someone told her to burn you alive?
Correct. To put me on hot water to burn me as an
And
infant.
and did she tell you who told her that?
She says she doesn't remember. She just says that she just didn't think at the moment that was what she was told to do, and that
And
the Christians stopped her, and that's why she was forced to leave me alone for 2 months, and they took
oh,
over for 2 months.
the Christians stopped her.
Yes, and that's where I'm trying to figure out if maybe they prayed over me or if something happened during that time that she wasn't with me, but I didn't know that till like maybe 2 years ago. That's a fact. Like I did not know. I just sat down with her. I just told her I just want to know my past because I'm in a different path now, and I just want to know, like, is there anything you're hiding from me? Is there anything I should know? Anything? And she just told me that was the only thing she remembers is that somebody told her to burn me, and she was walking towards the church to go burn me. No, no, no.
Well, well, here's where I can share a little bit of just my experiences, um, how this could apply to your situation and other people who may be experiencing something similar. These forces that we're dealing with are all, how can I see it? They need your consent, and your will also plays a part. So let's say, for example, um, it was me, and I'm let's say some weird experience, right? I go into some chamber, right? And when I go into that chamber, I go back in time and I end up in my body as a 10-year-old. But it's me, the way I am now, right? But I'm in my body as a 10-year-old. And then all these weird beings just come out of nowhere because they see I'm 10 and they think they can manipulate me, so on and so forth. Because when you're young, we're vulnerable. And I just use my will. And they come in with all these, let's do this, let's go over there. I'm like, no. And then they try to scare me, do whatever, make all these weird appearances, and I just stare at them. What are they going to do? They need your consent and they need your fear. Without your fear, without your consent, without your will, they can't do nothing. Now, someone might say, well, how do you know that? Okay, well, what's their objective when you encounter them? Well, it seems like they want to destroy me. Okay, so if their objective is to destroy me, why am I still here? There must be some rules. Because why would just destroy me then and get it over with and move on to the next person? So there must be some rules present. And since I don't know what those rules are, I'm just going to draw conclusions from my world and from contract law. So in contract law, in order for a contract law to be enforceable in court, you need consent. So I'm going to use that as the basis, and then from there extrapolate that to the spirit realm because I know that law as we deal with it today is also a reflection of spiritual laws. And I'll go into that later in other podcasts. So if they don't have my consent and they don't have my fear, and I'm not handing my will over to them, I don't care how ugly they look. I don't care how powerful they appear. Because if they wanted us so bad, we would have already been gone. Right? So hopefully this information is helpful to others. And then you were saying earlier um, something about levitating. So was that the same time where you had the dream and the fire was present, or was that another dream?
It wasn't a dream. It actually happened because I actually seen myself to the left. Um, I'm never gonna forget that experience ever in my life. How old I was. It was probably before my daughter, so it had to be between 13 to 15.
Mhm.
Um, I can't remember past 9 years old, like younger than 9. I just remember 9 and up. But what I do remember now that you said that you give permission, I agree because during 13 to 14 was my prime where it's something that I'm very shameful of to say out loud, but I'll say it just for the sake of understanding where I'm at too, because you just reminded me when you were talking right now. I just like went like flashback all the way where I did open a circle. I did open a pentacle in my mom's room, and to this day, when you go to my mom's room, it's very cold. I never closed it. Um, it's still my sisters still get like sleep paralysis and stuff in there in the house, and I just don't step foot over there, but I know what I did, which was
Mhm.
open a portal. And I do know that I also had a white mirror that was like a vanity back then, like a big mirror. And I wrote in my witch language a spell to see Lucifer. And again, it's nothing I'm proud of, but I do know. And I do have two brothers that could testify to that because they were with me. I don't know what I was thinking showing my brothers this, but whatever image came upon, there was an image that came upon. And
On
it's
what?
very, it was just transparent,
But
beautiful
where did it appear, the image?
in the mirror.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if
So
I was inviting something in, but
mhm,
I was pretty much happy about it all the time. I was never afraid
mhm,
until I realized when God came in my life, basically, you could say, that's when I started having fear. And then when I understood how God works, I no longer have fear.
mhm,
So we're talking about a little girl that she didn't know what she was doing, but she knew what she was doing, kind of.
mhm.
And that's something that you just brought, like when you were talking, it just, all I could feel is like heat in my body. Like I just remembered um, that part of my life. Again, I'm not proud of it. And it's something that I
Yeah,
do remember.
we all go through these phases.
Yeah.
We're not born perfect. It would be nice. And I thank you for sharing that with us and sharing that vulnerability with the audience. Um, I want to talk about the mirror and the witch language. When you say the thing appeared in the mirror, was it in the reflection or was it in the mirror itself?
In the mirror itself.
And when you say witch language, if there was a language present today that sounded like it, what would it sound like?
Like the runes, but it's a witch language. It's an alphabet that,
Like the Nordic, one of the Nordic languages, Latinist?
I mean, I can only like write it from what I
Oh, it
remember.
was, oh, you wrote it, you didn't say it.
No, I wrote it on around the mirror. And
Got it. Got it. Okay. I got it. I got you. Okay.
language is because as I grew up, I was forced to do a book of shadows with all my work.
Mhm.
We had a language that we have there so that whenever we write things down, nobody will understand it besides the persons that understand the language.
Mhm.
And that's what I meant by that.
I want to talk about the Book of Shadows real quick. So the Book of Shadows is just a journal. That's all that is. So for people out there who um, you're interested in the paranormal, you're interested in manifesting, you're interested in the law of attraction, the Book of Shadows is nothing more than a notebook. The Book of Shadows adds a type of mysticism to it, and it sounds fancy. And if you want to call it that, practitioners to add more spice to it to get you motivated to continue with it, then very well then. But it's just a notebook, you keeping track, your insights, revelations, things that you want to use to help you grow as a person. So, in a nutshell, that's basically what that is. Now, you said earlier, I wanted to talk about this too. When I reached out to you and to schedule this, I haven't had sleep paralysis in years.
Wow.
Years. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. I mean, it's been so long. If I had some within the past 5 years, it's been so far and few between that I don't even remember when it happened. But there was a time when it did happen a lot. But when I reached out to you, of course, last night I get sleep paralysis. And then remember when I texted you that I was going to talk about something, the weird experience? This is it. So I want to share this with the audience. So um, who knows what the reason is? But it's possible that whatever forces or spirits that are pursuing you for whatever reasons, now they're upset with me for bringing you on here, right? But it was funny because here's what the dream was. So where I grew up, I had a close friend of mine, and my from from 10 to 12 years old, my dad dated someone, a female, and her and her family were abusive physically, and I would just run away because I didn't want to deal with it. And I would run away to my friends' houses, local friends down the street at the corner, and they would let me spend the night. They would even tell me, "You don't have to go back home. You can live with us." So I would spend the night there 2 or 3 nights, and then when I'm at school, my dad would find me. You need to come home, and then everything would be okay for a while. And then his girlfriend and her kids start tripping again. Then I would run away again. So it would be that cycle for like 2 years until he booted them all out, and then things were normal again. So I would run away to my friend's house, Javier, and I would hang out with them. And and they're cool people, but I was like 11, 12. I'm almost 50 now. So of course it's not on the forefront of my mind every day. So it's easy to forget, right? It's not like if I see him, I'm gonna forget who he is, but it's not like at the forefront of my mind where I'm thinking about him all the time. I haven't thought about them in years. So last night in my dream, there was an alley behind Javier's house. And in the dream, there's the alley, there's Javier's house, and then somehow I lived in the house across from them. You know how dreams are. So it was Javier's house, the alley, and then my house. And in the dream, I had just bought that house. So I'm doing some stuff in the backyard. And then I look over, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Javier used to live over there. So I look over and I see like 3 ladies. Javier is Spanish, so of course it's Hispanic, right? Javier, they're Hispanic. And I look over, I see 3 Hispanic ladies. And I'm assuming, oh, that's his mom or his aunt. I remember them. Although they're gonna look different because they're older now. I was 10, so now I'm almost 50. So that's like 40 years ago, right? So of course they're gonna look a lot different, like in their 70s, 60s. So when I see them, I'm like, oh hey. And they just look at me weird, like they didn't remember me at all. And then it was 3 of them walking, and I'm like, oh, they don't remember me. Okay. Then I saw another one. So then it's like 5 of them. I only remembered like actually it was only one who I remembered. The other ones I didn't remember them. So it was like one lady, I kind of remember her. Then there's like 5 ladies all walking. And again, just to be clear, this isn't them. This is just the dream. When I knew them in real life, they were super cool people. So I'm not suggesting that they were practicing anything weird, but it's just the dream. So in the dream, so I see the girl, I remember her. She looks older, of course, but then it's 5 of them, and they're just looking at me strange. Like, who is this guy? So I'm like, and as I look closer, I'm like, no, that's not her. Yeah, that's not Javier's aunt. That's not his sister. That's someone else. So then I look closer at them as they're walking by, It's like 5 of them. And then I looked at them, and in my mind, I recognized. I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, that's not Javier's aunt. And then I said out loud, you guys are witches. And then right when I said that, all of a sudden, it was like 10 of them right in front of me like this in the dream. And then at that moment, I had sleep paralysis. And I couldn't move. I'm like, and then at that moment, when I had the sleep paralysis, it woke me up, but I couldn't open my eyes. And I was going to start praying, right? But me being the nerdy scientist, I should have went to school for physics. But me being the nerdy scientist that I am, I'm like this. I'm like, well, remember what I said earlier about will, fear, and consent? Remember? So I'm like this. I'm like, well, I'm not afraid of them. I'm not giving them my consent. So I'm going to just use my will and force them away. And I just turned my head. You can't hurt me. And then I woke up and they let me go. Now, that was interesting for me because before, when I would have those experiences, the only thing I needed to do was to call on Jesus' name. And only then would I break free. And even then, sometimes it was hard to say the J for whatever reason. And then I would just say Yeshua. And then I would break free. But this time, I couldn't even move my mouth. And I just used my will, and I just looked at all of them in the dream, right? I'm like, I'm not afraid of you. And I just turned my head, and then I woke up. So it's funny because I'm like, man, whoever's after you, they're persistent. And it could be, yeah, go ahead.
You're gonna trip out after you're done talking on the dream I had before I came on here.
Oh, was it last night too?
It was, and you're gonna trip out, like trip out.
They're after you, whoever these people are, but
I know.
we'll defeat them. Light always overcomes darkness.
Yes.
Darkness is weak. If darkness was so strong, then how come they only come at night? Come all the time. Don't be waiting, picking your moments. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I digress.
So this is the thing. Growing up, just so the audience could relate to me a little bit. Growing up, I thought it was light, right? A light witch. I was I worked light. But it wasn't until I was walking down in downtown and I was wearing my pendulum. And it was a nice pendulum. It was gold. It had the witch's sign and it had the star, for the 5 elements. And, a homeless guy tells me, that if you turn that around, you're working for the same guy? And I said, what? He's like, look it up. Turn it around. And when he told me that, that's when I started, like, I guess.
And what was it again?
It was a
what
pendulum.
Was it?
It was a pentacle, but a pendulum means that it's like
like the Star of David.
It's
something similar to that.
It's enchanted to protect me as I wear it. That's a pendulum. That's a little different. So the pentacle, he told me to turn it upside down, and that's when I remember that I started questioning more things, right? But moving forward, I've been away from the craft for 4 years exactly. That's when I threw my last tarot and everything that I own, including the Book of Shadows. I threw everything away 4 years ago. So it's about to be 5. Just so people understand where I'm coming from. But I'm going to agree with some things that you said, and because in my dream, for some odd reason, and I told my daughters, I woke them up and I have to tell them, I came running to them because I said, so for some reason in my dream, I've made it, right? I had my big house, and I was just happy in my front porch, just looking over, and I don't know where a person appeared, but I knew she was a witch. And I asked her, I said, what do you want, witch? That's exactly, I was very defensive in my dream. I was like, what do you want, witch? And she says, I don't know what she said. I can't remember what she said, but she was coming to me. And then I just called my girls. I screamed, girls, you guys already know what to do. And then all my girls came out with all the crystals and protection for them. And for some reason, same as you, I don't know if it's the same thing, but I try calling on Jesus Christ because that's what I usually do, right? Nothing happened. When I scream out of my lungs, Jesus Christ, nothing happened. Usually in any kind of sleep paralysis or sleep problems that I have, when I say his name, everything disappears like vapor, right? This time, nothing happened. So all I could do, knowing that this lady was trying to attack me, right, this witch, I said, okay, I call upon my sisters. And I call upon all the witches like I used to when I was younger. Out of nowhere, 4 witches appear. And I appeared out of nowhere in a bathtub with roses. And then I woke up. And I said, okay, I don't know what this dream means, but it looks like somebody's trying to come to my house. And I need to protect myself. And what I got from my sisters, because when I was in a covenant, that's what it is, right? Is get some rose water. That was my message, clear and simple for me as a person.
Hmm.
My dream means someone's after you. Rosewater is gonna protect you. I don't
So
know if
let
it
me
means anything to you, but
well
that was
let me introduce a concept. We have we have 5 minutes left. Um 3 minutes into that 5 minutes, I'll talk on this. I'll try to be quick, and then we'll wrap it up. And then you can give the listeners some info about yourself if they want to reach out to you and where they can find you and support whatever you're doing. So um, I've been studying these topics now for since October of actually before then. Um, I've been studying these topics since June of 1990. I've been studying these topics. And what I'm about to share, I haven't read it in any of these books that I've read. Now, that doesn't mean that no one has said it before, but if they have, and if it's been written, I've never encountered it. So I'm just sharing this from my own personal experience. When it comes to dealing with the paranormal, and more specifically, dark entities, for lack of a better term, and I know the Christians are going to get mad at me about this, uh, I want to call it will magic, right? There's all these different kinds of magic, right? There's crystal magic, right? All these different kinds of magic, right?
a lot.
Right? So I'm going to say will magic is the highest, but it's the hardest to develop. Why? Well, because with will magic, you're not relying on anyone other than your own self. So with will magic, whoever it is, and they're trying to come against me, get your ass out of here. No, I'm not afraid of you. What are you going to do? If you want to hurt me, go ahead, try it. You would have done it already. So evidently you don't have the strength. Then let's go at it. Let's go. Let's knuckle up then. And then I just face them. Just use your will. Don't call upon it. If I call upon someone, it's going to be Yeshua. If that doesn't work, that's always phase one. Phase one response, I'm calling on Yeshua because there's no J in the Hebrew language, right? And if he's so unreal, then how come all these different covens, dark covens, what's their issue with the name of Yeshua? If it lacks so much power, there must be something to it,
Correct.
right? There must be something there, or else what's the issue with it? They don't have a problem with Buddha, right? They don't have a problem with all these other names. So what's the issue? They don't have a problem with Godzilla or Thanos. So what's the issue with Yeshua? If there's nothing there, there must be something there. So they're not going to gaslight me. I wasn't born yesterday. This ain't my first rodeo. So evidently there must be something to the name of Jesus and the name of Yeshua. But if for whatever reason that doesn't work, okay, fine. Then I use my will. I use will force. And the will force gets them out of here. It worked. I've tested it multiple times. So for all you listeners, if you ever feel powerless, exert your will force over them. You are an emanation of the creator. You are an emanation of source. Imagine a tree. The tree is source and you are a branch. So since you are a branch, you are an offspring of source. So you have aspect to that power. So I want to thank you for joining us. We're going to have to do another one and go deeper because I know you got some stuff there. You got a lot of stuff there. So for our listeners, if they want to follow you or if they want to support you, let them know where you're at and how to contact you.
So everything's on my podcast, guys. I have a podcast. It's called Strike Adversity. It's together. It's Strike Adversity together, and I basically talk about everything there because that's where I felt I was free to say it. Besides coming on with Eric today, so thank you so much, Eric, for giving me the opportunity. I believe the other way you can contact me is through my Instagram. It's my first and last name as you can see in the screen, so it's RUTHSAENZ. So just add root signs. And I do finance, and I'm a mom of 4 daughters, which I still think that's something different that I got 4 daughters when you think about paranormal stuff, because it's 5 elements in that. So just so you understand where my mind is most of the time. But I have to agree with Eric. Now that I'm older and I've studied most of the things myself, you are. I'm not gonna say the Lord because it's only one Lord and Savior, right? But you are a God. You're in His image, so you are capable of doing the same things that He does, and you can study that through the Bible or through the law of attraction as well. And I believe that, like Eric, I was able to find that force again. Like even in my dream, I tried first calling on Him, and if it didn't work, I still believed in what I believed in. So, Eric, I hope I provided some value.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll have to bring you back on another time. But thank you for joining us. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us as well. And again, this is Eric Ramos with the Rabbit Hole Podcast. And again, until next time, we'll talk to you guys again later. Have a great day, everyone.
You're listening to The Rabbit Hole with Eric Ramos, only on LA Talk Radio.